What's up, everyone? You know, I was thinking, I've been thinking on it this week about this class that I had signed my son up for. And there's a class that I also want to take. And this would be a class that, excuse me, that years ago when I was in college that I wish I would have been able to take. You know, the funny thing about college is that, you know, you could find yourself in a situation where you really don't want, you really don't know what your major is, or you know what you want it to be. And in some situations you could just kind of pick something. You know, you could pick a major that's based off of the job market at the time, like what's hot, like right now. Of course, in this technology age that we're in, you know, it's AI, chat GPT, you know, it's those types of things. You know, tech has been booming for quite some time now. And you know, like cybersecurity. You know, I've been online to these colleges and universities, just looking at the different, you know, programs and stuff that they offer. And you know, there's cybersecurity degrees. You know, there's entrepreneurship. You know, business entrepreneurship degrees. You know, programs that weren't available years and years ago when I was in college. And that's because, you know, things change, the landscapes change, the job market, the economy changes. And, you know, schools and universities have to have programs to make them desirable for the job market, you know. So I think I'm going to go ahead on and do it. I'm going to sign up to take the class, and as many other classes that I could take. As you know, community college system here has a good continuing education program, so I'm getting these classes dirt cheap than if I were to go to a school or university, which, you know, I can't do. You know, I don't have $4.75 a credit hour just to take this class. But you know, I'm gonna do it for me. You know, I think as parents we get so caught up in doing for our kids. You know, my youngest son is playing AAU travel basketball. He has his first out of town trip coming up, you know, next weekend. I'm not going to make it, you know, I have to work, but you know, we do so much for them, especially when they're involved in sports and extracurricular activities. And now I just feel like it's time for me to really do some of the things that I've always wanted to do. It's a way, you know, for me to treat myself, because you know, I think we forget that we owe it to ourselves to do things that we like. We owe it, you know. You owe you. You really do. You know, you owe yourself that whatever it is that you want to do, whatever interests, whatever hobbies and things that you want to partake in, you owe it to yourself to do it, to treat yourself to that, you know. And that's what I'm going to do. It brings a smile to my face when I think about it. I'm very excited because, you know, it's just so much time, effort, and energy and money that goes into other things. And I'm not complaining. I mean, that's what you sign up for, whether you realize it or not, when you become a parent. You know, it's really what you sign up for. But you're never too old. It's never too late for you to revisit things. You know, it's a writing class. I've always loved to write. You know, it's just back when I was in college, you know, the school that I went to didn't have that kind of major, didn't specialize in that. You know, and now I just kind of feel like, you know, it's my chance, it's my turn. And I'm going to take it, because no one's going to do it for me. I have to do it for myself, and I'm going to go ahead on and do it. You know, don't feel guilty as a parent because you treat yourself to something, you know, or you do something that may take time away from your kids. You know, the class is on Saturdays. I know it's only for 2 sessions. And I know for one of those Saturdays, I may not make it to one of his games, but I've been to, dozens and dozens of games. He's 15 and he's been playing since he was 8 years old. So, 7, 8 years old. And I've been to so many games out of town and locally. So, I'm not going to feel bad about missing, a game or two just to do something for me finally that, I've always wanted to do. And, I'm not going to let this opportunity pass me by. So don't let an opportunity pass you by. Know that you owe it to yourself to, re-educate yourself or educate yourself on something that you didn't know, or revisit something that, you maybe started and didn't get a chance to finish. Just as adults, whether we're parents or not, just as people, keep in mind that, you owe you that opportunity, so when you get it, don't feel bad about, taking advantage of it, do for you always.